Shut up and sit down.
Order, order, order. I am Judge Simon, and I'm here today to hear the case of the people against Finding Ohana. And I would like to call today's expert witnesses a couple of nerds.
So, before we get too far into our review of Finding Ohana, why don't you give people a quick synopsis of the story, but no spoilers aside from what's in the trailer.
So this movie starts off and we meet young Pilly, who grew up in New York City. However, she has a passion for geocaching, and anyone who doesn't know what that is, go look it up. It is enormous fun, kind of like Pokemon Go, but in real life, and you get to find stuff instead of little imaginary monsters. So she is obsessed with geocaching with her friend. They win a big geocaching competition, and she wins the chance to go to geocache camp, which is definitely a real thing that everyone's heard of. However, she ends up not being able to go, no spoilers, and it turns out that her grandfather back in Oahu in Hawaii is sick, and so they have to go back to look after him.
Dad, hello!
What if Papa doesn't have internet?
You don't want it. Please don't kill your sister.
But not only that, when they get there, not only is he still recovering, needing a lot of support, they find out that he is actually broke and struggling to pay his bills.
Final notice.
You're about to lose your house.
This is our Ohana's land. I'm gonna die before I leave.
So we get to explore this with them of kind of, they grew up in New York, that's where they feel comfortable. But is their true home Hawaii, or are they going to be drawn back to New York? And that's a complicated decision they have to make. And in the meantime, they have an incredible adventure.
They just happen to find a mysterious gold coin and a notebook full of clues that seem to direct them towards buried treasure.
Buried treasure? Everyone likes buried treasure.
Yes.
That's the best kind of treasure.
This was my papa's, and my papa's papa got this from Monk.
It's real goldie. This is how we can get the money and help us.
So that's enough of a synopsis, I think. Let's talk about what we enjoyed about this movie, because there was a lot to love. Now, first of all, if you're a fan of the Indiana Jones movies, especially the Goonies movies, that kind of genre, that family-friendly adventure movie with someone swashbuckling their way through a cave of terrors and traps.
Spooky skeletons.
Yeah, spooky skeletons, absolutely. This is 100% in your wheelhouse.
What do you think's down there?
But this is the first of that type of movie that I've seen that was set in Hawaii. And not only set in Hawaii because it's gorgeous there, but actually focuses on real Hawaiian culture. And when I say real Hawaiian culture, I mean there are no grass skirts, no hula dances, no coconut bras. Real Hawaiian culture.
You guys look taller in the picture. Go ahead.
Mahalo.
Seems a little unsanitary.
So one of my favorite things as well is when a movie knows what genre it's in and isn't afraid to poke fun at that genre. And there were lots of moments like that in this movie. For example, the Goonies, there's a moment where Peely, the lead character, shouts, "Hey, you guys!" when they're in the middle of their own quest to find their own one-eyed Willy. Absolutely brilliant.
Just have to go through.
The jaws of death.
That sounds inviting.
See? Piece of cake.
There's also a point where they come across the set where the TV show Lost was filmed, and they joke about how convoluted the plot was to Lost and how the script was going on. Again, just very aware without necessarily needing to be kind of fourth wall breaking constantly and too cheesy about it.
I'm not as strong as I look. I only went to one CrossFit class. It was a free trial. Shut up!
In terms of the sets, everything looked like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like if a giant bull had come running down, you wouldn't have been surprised, or like arrows shooting out from the walls and things. Just had a very Indiana Jonesy vibe to it. And one of my favorite things, when our kids were very young, we used to watch Lilo and Stitch, the TV series version of Lilo and Stitch with them. And there was a lot of talk there about the night marches. And that was our only reference to what the night marches are. They're actually the souls of fallen Hawaiian warriors. And this movie actually tells a much more traditional view of what the night marches are. So I love it that they're kind of blending some of these tropes from the genre, but also putting a really, really authentic spin without it feeling cheesy and artificial.
You really feel the heart to it, and I really liked that they explored kind of Hawaiian myths and legends without it getting, like, these are modern people in modern times, and while they were kind of superstitious, it wasn't kind of, it was really sympathetic in the way it portrayed it. It felt genuine. Like one of those things, like, you're not necessarily superstitious, but you wouldn't necessarily walk under a ladder. It was that kind of thing of, like, this is probably stupid, but we're going to do it anyway. And I kind of liked, it gave it a lot of heart, and I liked exploring that side of, like, Hawaiian history.
Hey! Why do you have a drawing of a night marcher?
You know what that is?
Ghosts of Hawaiian warriors. He said they march at night. You'll know they're coming when you hear their drums. Well, sleep tight.
The other thing that to me was just genius in this movie in terms of its heritage from movies like The Goonies and Indiana Jones was the casting of Kehui Kwan, who played Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He played Data in The Goonies. And honestly, I teared up when I saw him on screen for the first time. He just seems like such a good human being. We've seen him at numerous Comic-Cons across the US as well, that you may have guessed that we're comic book geeks. But he feels very authentic. It doesn't feel like you've just transplanted a character from Indiana Jones or The Goonies into a modern movie for the sake of it, you know, for lip service. He really feels like he belongs on Hawaii. And I just loved seeing him in this movie. That was amazing.
The other fun thing I liked about this that I really wasn't expecting was when they were showing the flashbacks of the history behind the buried treasure and how it got to be where it is. No spoilers. I liked it that they did the flashbacks drunk history style, with the kids kind of telling each other this story in, like, modern kid kind of speak, and then they've got the actors, and I think it's the same actors from Drunk History as well, kind of acting it out in the same way. That was so fun. Yeah, that really was inspired. It just, every now and again, you know, the story felt like it may get a little heavy, and those moments of levity really helped to balance it out and just bring a bit of fun back to it when it was needed. Really, really well scripted and well written. You know, the other thing that I just loved, and I guess it comes back to this feeling authentic and true Hawaiian, was not only did you have characters who were speaking actual Hawaiian language, and the Hawaiian language is just fascinating because there just aren't that many vowel sounds, so there are lots of very long words that kind of repeat the same sound over and over again, which it blows my mind how complex some of the languages in that area are to learn. But yeah, not only did it have real Hawaiian language, but it also had Pidgin English in there as well, which is widely spoken by native Hawaiians. And Pidgin English is another thing that you kind of look at the words. If you see Pidgin English written down, the words make sense. But when you hear somebody speaking Pidgin English, oh my God, it's such an alien language. And I find myself just fascinated, just hanging on every word when people are speaking Pidgin. So again, I love the fact that it was bringing it back to authentic Hawaiian roots. So you may have guessed from the fact that the movie is called Finding Ohana. And Ohana in Hawaiian means family, or nobody gets left behind. Or forgotten.
Or forgotten, from Lilo and Stitch. But yeah, Ohana means family. And the undercurrent through this entire movie, as you said at the beginning in the synopsis, was where is their family? You know, is their family New York City? Or is there a deeper spirit of Ohana in Hawaii that's waiting for them? Is there something cultural that they've got ties to that would be worth sticking around for, even if you're an edgy, grumpy teenager like E, the older brother of Pili is in the movie?
I just want to grab my sister who thinks she's Indiana Jones.
We'll get them.
And no spoilers again. We really don't want to ruin this one for you, but this movie, the way it wraps up, is just so touching and emotionally intelligent in the way that it depicts the various forms of family. There's the family that you're born into, there's a family that you choose, there's this kind of cultural heritage that everybody has, that everybody's from somewhere. And it really spoke to how strong that feeling is in Hawaii and in Hawaiian culture.
All right!
Ohana is a big part of you. You know why? Because you, Hawaiian.
The second thing that this movie really left me with, and I found myself thinking about days afterwards, was the idea of living with aloha. And aloha, everybody knows aloha is Hawaiian for hello, but it's not that simple at all. Aloha is living with the spirit of acceptance, with wanting to help people. People even talk about people driving with aloha in Hawaii. People drive slowly and carefully and look out for each other. There's like a neighborly spirit in aloha. And it just really left me thinking that wherever you live, whatever culture you're from, I kind of feel like the world could do with a little bit more aloha in it. And if this movie helps spread the feeling of family, the feeling of ohana, the feeling of acceptance and caring and kindness in aloha, there are definitely worse ways that you could spend your time than watching Finding Ohana.
I know you're scared, but I'll be right here the whole time.
I gotta do this for Papa.
So we are so impressed with this movie, and I just wanted to do a big shout out to Jude Weng, who directed this movie, but also stopped by our channel to chat recently and was full of kind words for us. Jude, you gave us just an incredible time, and we wanted to thank you not only for communicating with us, but also creating such an incredible movie. So amazing job, you and the whole cast and crew who put this movie together. We're going to cherish this one in the same way that we've cherished Indiana Jones and the Goonies.
And even our teenagers liked it, which is a really big deal. They don't like anything. So to make a movie like this that they enjoyed is a huge achievement.
Silence! I have heard that there has been a crime committed on this island. Apparently, somebody stole the show. Tell me who it is.
So there was a theft, and the show was stolen. So who do we think stole the show?
Well, you know, there was actually a ton of really good acting, and honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of movies that have child actors in. I sometimes feel they pick bratty Hollywood kids and who just overact, and it can get really grating.
It wasn't that bad.
However, I thought some of the child actors in this movie were phenomenal, actually. They really absorbed me into the movie, and it was very immersive. But for me, the person who really stole the show was the grandfather, played by Branscombe Richmond, really because he demonstrated such a wide range of emotions in the movie. He to me was the anchor that brought them all back to Hawaii. He was the living embodiment of ohana and aloha and this spirit of Hawaiian culture. To hear him speaking pidgin, to hear him speaking Hawaiian, the scene in the hospital, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is a scene in a hospital between him and his daughter, just an absolute tearjerker. And yet he's also funny through the movie as well. There was so much to love about his performance that I would have to say that if anybody stole the show, it was him.
Definitely. He gave it so much heart. He was the heart of the movie, but I liked it that he had flaws and he had to face those flaws. And so I really liked that he was kind of held up as, like you said, the spirit of ohana and the spirit of aloha. Like, he was the one that carried it for the movie, and also he had flaws that he had to face himself and kind of navigate. And I really liked how complex that was.
Silence! I will now deliver my Nerdict. Finding Ohana is enormous fun for teens, tweens, and families. And yet, it is surprisingly emotionally intelligent and also respectfully depicts real Hawaiian life. Therefore, we award this movie 4 stars. If you enjoyed this video, then I sentence you to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell. And we will see you next time on The Nerdict.
Shut up and sit down.